seen a lot of people stressing out about the world PvP situation in Ashes. A lot of this is coming from people I expect aren't following the game super heavily. I mostly credit it to them just not knowing the plans. So, I'm taking it upon myself to educate you noobs on how you can expect the world PvP and corruption to go in Ashes. To start, we haven't seen the Alpha 2 yet. All of what we talk about is going to get tested, and numbers will be changed. The important thing to understand is the spirit of the system and what it intends to be.
And when we think about griefing and we think about what is griefing, griefing isn't necessarily the realization of risk, right? Risk is a healthy thing. Risk makes us value reward. Without risk, we would not pursue certain achievements because anybody could achieve them. Risk makes us have a sense of thrill or have some sense of anxiety, right? And those are all emotional responses that get elicited when risk is present. So risk isn't a bad thing. We like risk. Risk is good not just in PvP, but in PvE as well. When you can't always predict the environment or encounter that you're a part of, risk is something like, I've never seen this boss do that before, or these ads came at an ill-placed time, or there's a trap here that I didn't experience before. There's a lot of elements that risk introduces that keep gameplay less stale, that keep it more dynamic, that introduce environments where the unexpected can occur. That is a good thing. Now, the question is, when risk becomes something that doesn't stop other players from impacting your gameplay in a negative, harassing, and repetitive manner, that the motivation to do that action is less about their personal advancement and more about impacting your gameplay, because when they elicit the response of anger or rage from the player, they feel a sense of accomplishment. That, in my opinion, is what griefing is. It is outside of the expectation of the gameplay behavior that's being communicated in the design philosophy, right?
Mhm.
That is that.
First, let's talk about the pre-deletion phase of a PvP encounter with a stranger in the woods. Two people meet in the woods. One we'll call the attacker, and one we'll call the victim. If the attacker kills the victim and the victim does not fight back, the attacker becomes corrupt. The victim will drop a high percentage of their gatherables and resources. If the victim chooses to fight back and dies, the attacker does not become corrupt, and the victim drops a lower percentage of gatherables and resources. There is consideration for groups too. So if a group of players participates in some way with a corrupted kill, they too will be corrupt. If you heal somebody like that's committing a corrupted kill, you're going to get corrupted. The intention is that there's not going to be some goofy play around with other players trying to squeeze in a kill without getting corruption. The intention is that if you kill somebody not fighting back, no matter what the circumstances, they get corruption. Now let's talk about the deletion. These next 2 points are why I don't see the corruption system failing to thwart ganking and griefing in the form of PvP. The severity of the debuffs applied to corrupted players. The punishments for corruption are skill stat dampening, rising rate of dropping both raw materials and gear. That's right, completed gear. 4 times the death penalties. Location revealed on the map to bounty hunters. Player-to-player trading is disabled. Interaction with vendors is disabled. And interaction with NPCs, disabled. Interaction with storage, disabled. Extended logout times, experience debt. I think that's all, but they could add more if necessary. I know that's a long list, but it's to illustrate my point. There's not one benefit to going corrupt. Now, this is all going to be tested as well. So if in Alpha 2, there's a ton of players going corrupt, all they need to do is turn up the debuffs. So, for example, if the rate to drop gear was 10%, They just change that number to 50%. And they can do this for all the debuffs until the testing results show that players aren't going corrupt as much. The second variable is the rate at which a player gets corruption per kill. The intent of the system is to dissuade players from griefing and gaking. If there's a large level disparity between the attacker and the victim, you get a much larger amount of corruption. Also, your historical corruption levels are taken into consideration for future corruption gains. So if you have a history of being a jerk, you're going to get corruption at an accelerated rate. Again, this system is going to get tested. So if during Alpha 2, players are committing many corrupted kills before really getting affected by the debuffs, Intrepid can just change the rate of corruption gained per kill from, say, 10 points to 30. And they can tweak these things as much as they need to get the results they're intending to get. Given these 2 points, I don't see a situation in which the players are going to excessively corrupt kill with any success. My only concern with the system is in this next point. The post-deletion. Players will have means to reduce their corruption. The number one way, and in my opinion, the worst/weakest way, is death. If a corrupt player dies, they lose a portion of their corruption score. In my opinion, this is the weakest part of the system. It's too easy to avoid the punishments of getting corrupted. Say you choose to have a gank fest and murder 10 lobies. You flee the area, call your friends or family to you, and have them kill you several times, completely reducing your corruption score. Granted, this needs to be tested, and this is something that can change fairly easily. Say death lowers your corruption by 25%, and they find in Alpha 2 players are cheesing the corruption system this way. They could just change that percentage to like 5% or 1%. So maybe it's doable. But I think the best way, in my opinion, is the method they should be leaning into is gaining experience. A corrupted player can lower their corruption by gaining experience. Now, there may need to be some testing, but the hope would be that a corrupt player would then be forced to spend time out in the open world fighting mobs to lower their corruption. This gives other players the opportunities, other bounty hunters, the opportunity to enact revenge and really make the corrupted player pay for choice to go corrupt. Overall, I like the corruption system, and I believe it's going to do what it preaches. The game is based on this open world filled with danger. There's not any factions in this game that put you at odds with other players. The PvP systems that they're trying to cultivate is that of freedom to pick your own enemies. The corruption system is there to protect players from toxic players looking to interrupt your fun. But maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe to hear me be wrong about more things. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching my videos. Thank you, subscribe.